Okay, Giant team members, in this video lecture, we're going to focus on one type of change specifically, um, digital transformation. And within that context too, we're going to talk a little bit about the social matrix or the use of social media at organizations. And the reason, we did talk a lot about external factors for change a few video lectures ago. And we mentioned a whole bunch of things that could be drivers of change that are external to the organization. And probably none of those has such a profound impact on change than technology. So, this video lecture is specifically designed to discuss about some of the challenges of technological change, and then some of the pitfalls of change initiatives when it comes to technology. And I'm sure because technology is so prevalent, we've all had successful and unsuccessful change projects associated with technology. So this lecture probably will probably hit close to home. And again, when we're talking about change and change management, we're talking about, traditionally we're talking about maybe changing the operational change, or we're looking to change a product or introduce a new product. Those are more traditional types of change product. Technology, though, kind of forces us to focus our attention on some different priorities, because it is just a different type of it is just a different type of change, and usually those the focus is going to be, or the change is going to revolve some kind of automation, where we have manual processes now, and we're going to try to automate something. Those are big, drastic type changes. Tracking work with digital tools, whether it's a new inventory management system, whether it's a new learning management system if you're at a college, or whatever it might be, it's going to be a different way of tracking things, and it's going to require a whole bunch of learning and a whole bunch of training. And then there's also the digital customer interfaces. So how do we want to interact with our customer? And I'm sure Giant has many different ways, from bonus cards to digital content. I'm sure there's a presence on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. So there's, how are you going to interact with your customer with these different interfaces? And they're difficult because they usually entail what they would call cross-functional ripple effects, where it's not just impacting one department; it's having a ripple effect through a whole number of departments. So that is definitely an issue that could arise. There's really 7 capabilities when you're implementing digital change. Focusing on prioritized set of changes is number one. So whether it's a checklist or how you're going to, there really needs to be a prioritized set of changes. Having sufficient resources to implement the change, that really bites a lot of companies, and as they're going through this change. And we felt some of that when we were going to a new student tracking system, where I don't know if we quite had the resources that we needed, personnel wise, money wise, to do those changes. Ensuring ownership of and commitment to the changes at all levels of the organization. Again, that's hard with technology because some people are resistant to new technology. They think the old system is fine. So how do you ensure ownership and commitment? Planning from the start for long-term sustainability. Establishing clear accountability for implementation. I don't know what just happened there. So all 3 of those kind of tie together. Who's in charge? Um, how are they going to oversee this project? Is everybody committed to this project? All 3 of those need to be established. Maintaining continuous improvement during and after. We talked about continuous improvement in other courses, and how to do that. And with technology, you need that, because there are going to be there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be changes. People need to be involved in those changes when you're talking about continuous improvement. And then using standard change processes and effective program management when you're going through these processes. Again, it really does almost need to be a checklist of sorts of going through and following those standard change procedures to a T, because a lot of things can quickly go off the rail when you're dealing with technology. So the emphasis really, and the book states that some 85% of companies who are successful in change use each of um, those seven capabilities. So they're very important. I mean, 85% of successful transformation happens if you're going through each of those seven items. Um, and 4 out of 5 companies say it would not have been successful if we skipped any or most of those steps. So the emphasis should be on, if we kind of break that down a little bit more, emphasis should be on commitment. Communicating clear goals is part of that commitment. Making sure everybody's on the same page and everybody understands what's going on. Sustainability is when we're embedding key performance indicators. I probably shouldn't say key because it's key performance indicators, but embedding key performance indicators, because what is measured is what's focused on. So we need, maybe it's implementation dates, maybe it's training dates, whatever it might be. Embed those in and make sure that you're tracking them, because if you're measuring them, it's going to be tracked and attention is going to be paid to those. And then that continuous improvement component, employees should be allowed to refine and change as needed. Get them involved in the process. Those employees that are using the technology, get them involved in the process. Those three things really are just what the previous 7 talked about, but what the focus on change should be. So let's switch a little to the social matrix or social media, because I'm sure most of you use social media in one way, shape, or form. You may even use it at work. Some of your jobs may require you to interact on social media, interact with the customers on social media, or interact with each other on social media. So it's a big part of our lives. It's a big part of our work lives. It can be very, very beneficial to companies if used correctly, and it could be a trap if used incorrectly. So there's a couple of things to outline there. Most interact online activity can be considered social. Really, the internet is a social technology, and any type of online activity can be considered social. Then there's a long list of media applications, social media applications, organizations. They're on page 162 of your book. From shaping corporate culture to increasing team visibility to improving employee relations, facilitating employees' voices. There's so many benefits to social media with companies that it's almost too much to go over. I think it was McKinsey Global said that knowledge workers' productivity can increase by 20 to 25% because of social media. And that's just because information is easier to find. You don't have to go down to the library and look for information. It's easier to find. Now, we could have a whole different discussion on credible information. And that's a whole nother ballgame that I don't even think your book gets that much into. But as long as we're looking in the right places and we're using social media as a way to find credible information, yeah, the productivity can increase drastically. And they said it could also save companies like $1.3 trillion. And that's, in searching fees and finding the right information and finding best practices and best management, best evidence, all of those things saving. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to the bottom line. It also helps with recruitment, and whatever your views on that, companies now are looking at social media from potential recruits to see if they want to hire them, and what kind of social lives do they live outside of the organization. Are they in alignment with the organization's values and beliefs? And so think what you will, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's a way that companies can learn about potential employees before they even join the company. So there's a lot there going on with social media, the benefits of social media to organizations, but there's also traps with it too, right? So number one, you just assume millennials want to use it at work, and a lot of times millennials don't. They see it as a social tool, and they're not necessarily big on using it at work or for workplace applications. So you shouldn't just assume, hey, younger people are going to want to use social media at work. A lot of companies prohibit non-work related topics to be discussed at work, especially through informal channels. And that could be a mistake because there's a lot of information that gets transferred in those informal, non-work related topics at work, and that's really distinguishing between direct learning and meta. Direct learning is learning how to do something, like how to solve a problem. Um, Meta knowledge is learning who has the expertise that you need. So this meta knowledge is kind of this more of a kind of an all-encompassing, somewhat tacit uh, knowledge that I know where to go to look for help, who has the expertise, who has the knowledge, and a lot of times again through those informal non-work related discussions that those things become known. So it's good to let that or even facilitate that at work. But we can also treat visible knowledge as the most important. Um, who has the technical skills um, over those maybe that have political skills or cultural skills, but those are certainly just as useful. So we can't move that that visible technological knowledge to the front of everybody else because all those other types of knowledge are certainly important. So those are some facts with social media. And just to kind of some of the challenges of change technology. First of all, even before that, consumers are hyper informed when making purchasing decisions, and that wasn't always the case. When I was young, when I was growing up, if let's just say you wanted to buy a used car, you would literally have to go to the nearest car lot and you were the victim of whatever they wanted to charge you because you just didn't know what did they pay for the cost, what are other places charging, how much can I negotiate, are there other features that I'm missing out on. There's a whole slew of information that you just didn't know. And as the internet came about, the consumers became more and more and more informed. And this speaks to the power of the buyer from our Porter's five forces model way back when in class number one. So as the internet came about, the consumer became more and more informed. Now I would say consumers are hyper informed. When I'm looking for a car, and I will be soon because my son just turned 16, when I'm looking for a car, I will search just about every dealership within a 100-mile radius, and I will really get to know what's being offered, what's a good deal, what's a great deal, what types of things are being offered in the car, what types of technologies, I'll know everything about the car and the dealership before I even buy. So it really is an environment of being hyper informed. So some of the change challenges that we have, finding ways to use digitalization, I got that one right, to achieve organizational goals. I don't know why I'm having trouble talking this morning, but so we want to make sure that our digital goals align with the organizational goals and that everybody's working on the same page towards them. That's a hard marriage to achieve. I'm trying to get older workers involved. They're not every worker above a certain age is anti-technology. Some are tremendous, some are resistant. So how do we get everybody involved and get them trained and up to speed on what the technology is going to bring? A lot of managers view the use of social media at work as a form of cyber loafing. And yes, of course, cyber loafing goes on, meaning you spend time on social media doing non-work related activities. And sure, that's going to happen. But I think the benefit you get from social media and the interaction with the customers through social media is worth the price of maybe having some employees go offline a little bit and just kind of do some just some personal viewing of web content. Cybersecurity, of course, is a major issue that companies need to be aware of, and also these technologies allow greater transparency for the company. So they're out there more. People understand what's going on within the organization, and it's really hard to hide something or shy away from, say, bad news or bad press or some kind of issue that's going on. There's so much more transparency as a result of these new technologies. Okay, so I'm going to end it there. That's our discussion on digital technologies and social media, and again, from this lecture, from the readings, a lot of benefits to the organization. A lot of benefits, too many to even mention the benefits and the cost savings and the performance increases. But there's a lot of traps that companies can fall into, and there's also a lot of challenges that come with trying to implement these technological changes.